Hey everybody, I'm Kate Conroy,
I'm Vinny Savatello.
and this is Other People's Business, which is the podcast from the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, the largest statewide business association in the country. We release a new episode every other Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. Shout out to New Jersey manufacturers. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, and they are the official sponsor of the show, so check them out if you need some updated coverage.
Awesome. Just a housekeeping matter or two before we get this train rolling. This podcast is available just about anywhere you can get a podcast. That's iTunes, Google Play, Amazon's TuneIn. We even throw these things up on YouTube if you'd rather watch than listen. But no matter how you check the show out, show it some love. Give it that like, give it that comment, give it that 5-star review on iTunes. Start your own podcast where you review and discuss episodes of this podcast. Kate and I would be happy to be guests. Occasionally.
Happy.
Not every time.
To be a guest star.
Occasionally.
Absolutely.
But with all of that out of the way, our very special guest today is Rosanne DeTorres and I always get this wrong, so you're gonna have to help me out here. DeTorres and DeGeorge Family Law.
That's right.
Perfect. I always pronounce it wrong. I don't know why. Say hi, let the audience hear your voice.
Hey, everybody out there. I'm real happy to be here again for my third time on Other People's Business.
Yes,
That's
you're
right.
joining a very elite
Always
club.
a pleasure.
Yep, this is the Hat Trick Club. You're in it now.
Awesome.
Okay, so today's icebreaker is, what are you currently binging? It could be books, movies, television, food.
Are you going to kill me if I tell you that there's an alarm going off in my house right now that I have to shut off?
No, I'm not going to kill you. Do you want to,
Go stop it. We'll pause the show here. We'll come right back.
I'm binging a couple of things. Book-wise, there's an author that wrote The Lincoln Highway called, his name is Amour, like
yeah.
love, Tools, Towles, fantastic. I read The Lincoln Highway and then I went out and bought all the other books that he wrote. I'm presently reading Rules of Civility, which he wrote, fantastic. I haven't read fiction in a long time where I actually chuckle to myself at the clever language. And I'm like, oh, that's clever. And interesting the way he coins phrases. Because I'm not really a trashy novel kind of person. I want something like a little more cerebral, if you will. In terms of TV, I don't have regular TV. I just stream. I'm watching.
I would say that's more and more common.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. I don't know why. I just finished.
Well, wait, what's The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem?
What is that? Yeah.
It's about, it goes back and forth between like the 1920s and the late 1930s. It's about a Jewish man who resides in Jerusalem, and he was living in America, and he went back to Jerusalem at his father's request to take over his father's business, which is like a food business, like a deli or something like that. And then they arrange a marriage to a woman that he doesn't love, and he is pressured to marry this woman that he doesn't love. And he really loves the beauty queen, who is Jewish, but from the Ashkenazi sect.
Yeah,
Ashkenazi, and they are arch enemies, these two Jewish sort of groups, and his family is crazy mad at him because he wants to be with this other Jewish woman, and it's just about that and the torment he goes through, and it's good. But you know, the really great show that I just finished was Under the Banner of Heaven.
I've heard great things.
Based on a book by John Krakauer, who's written a lot of books, and they're true books. They're true. They're true stories. He wrote Into Thin Air about the catastrophe of like 6 people dying on Mount Everest. He actually went up Mount Everest with them, and on the way down, many of them died. He survived. He wrote a book called Into the Wild about a college student from Emory University who went into the wilderness of Alaska and couldn't get back and died. So this is a book about the Mormon, a Mormon community in Salt Lake, where there's a murder of a Mormon woman, and the story of the catching the murderers.
And you said that this is nonfiction?
Correct. True story.
Wow.
And it actually happened. And Andrew Garfield plays the protagonist, the detective, who's also a Latter-day Saint. He's a member of that religious community, but he's also the detective on this murder investigation. And what he discovers sort of within the LDS community and hierarchy and leadership is pretty astonishing. So that was fantastic. That's 7 episodes. Hulu.
Cool.
That's been on my list actually, Under the Banner of Heaven. But jumping back to Amor, I read A Gentleman in Moscow.
I read that. Yep.
Oh my Lord. I just wanted to sit all day in one place turning pages in that book. It was so beautifully rendered. It was so beautifully done. I could not get enough of that book.
Mm-hmm. I haven't found an author like him in a long time. There's another author who's pretty good too. Her name is Satterfield. Anyway, I would have to look up the book that I read recently. But Immortals is just he's magnificent.
I agree. Magnificent is a good word. Yeah, I agree. Vin, what are you binging?
I have this is going to be the other end of the spectrum. I just finished Stranger Things, or at least the season 4 part 1. I actually thought this was going to be the last season because I don't know, they have like a part 2 coming up in another month or so, and usually with Netflix they split up that last season just to kind of get one more cash grab out of it. But apparently they're splitting up season 4 and then there's going to be a 5. So yeah.
Oh.
Is that sort of the same theme of this sort of, sci-fi kind of thing?
Sure. You ever see E.T.?
Yeah.
So Stranger Things would be E.T. if E.T. was evil. I don't know. So it's a story about some kids in the 80s that have to save the world from, some kind of like, I don't want to call it an alien. They're monsters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of an R-rated adventure. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the first season or whatever.
Oh yeah, then you should be good with. Yeah, it's basically been that all along. It's
Okay.
kind of wrapping up their whole story because every season it ends, they save the world, but then they always give that little teaser like, yeah, but the problem is still there. So now we're kind of moving towards a direction where maybe we can eradicate that problem altogether. But yeah, we finished that, and then I just started Obi-Wan on Disney Plus, and that's been great. It's sort of halfway done, but yeah.
Nice.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
I feel so, like you're talking about like these real serious things, and I'm like, yeah, I watched Stranger Things and Obi-Wan, but it's what I have the mental capacity for right now. So
takes all
I
kinds.
remember when Star Wars came out, and we actually went to see it in a theater, and it was one of the first movies I ever saw as a kid where we actually clapped at the end.
That's
way
awesome.
the first one. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
I remember
total
seeing-
classic. Yeah.
I remember that
Jedi.
like yesterday.
Yeah, I saw Jedi in the theater, and it was the same thing. We clapped at the end. We couldn't believe what we had just witnessed. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was too young to see the first 3 in theaters when they first came out, but they re-released them in the 90s with all those changes. And it was bittersweet because it was so awesome to see Star Wars in theaters, but every so often you're like, wait, why did they do that? So
They made a lot of dumb changes.
A lot of dumb changes, like a lot of really dumb changes.
A lot of really dumb changes.
They updated the movies?
Yeah, they slapped a bunch of digital effects into it, and in some cases you really can't notice, but in other cases they are really slapping you across the face with it. And those movies that when they first came out, they were very reliant on practical effects because that's all you had then.
Right.
So when you stick a CG character next to a puppet, it doesn't work, and they never figured that out. So they really doubled down, and that's what those movies have been like ever since.
But also the CGI technology was fairly new in the 90s, and it was not very elegantly done.
Yeah. CG Jabba the Hutt was awful. Just awful.
It was.
What are you binging, Kate?
So I have 2 today, sort of like you. I started something called Love on Netflix, which flew under my radar for a long time. It's a Judd Apatow show. So immediately I'm like, okay, well, this can't be bad if it's Judd Apatow. And it's sort of half romantic comedy, half freaks and geeks. The Jillian Jacobs, she was on Community for a long time, is the woman, and this man, I guess the love interest, but we haven't gotten there yet, is played by somebody I've never met before. Or obviously I've never met any of these people, but I've never seen him anywhere else before. But he fits that Judd Apatow kind of nebbish, dorky, glasses kind of a guy. And they have sort of accidentally struck up this friendship, and now they're running into each other all over the place. And the conversations they have are really fun and silly. And I don't know, they're both young adults just trying to figure it out, like get through life and work without, wanting to kill someone, basically. Like they're just struggling a little bit. And the book I'm reading that I'm loving is called Vera Kelly is Not a Mystery. And it's the second in a series, I guess. The first one was Who is Vera Kelly? And it's about this LGBTQ woman in the 60s who's in the closet from like the world, because back then it was sort of illegal to be out, and she gets drafted by the CIA to be a spy in Argentina, I think. That was the first book. And she makes enough money to buy a house in like Brooklyn or Bronx when she gets back to the States. But then she gets outed at her job, and so she has to like figure out what her next job is going to be. So she puts an ad in the newspaper, and she's like, well, I'm a former spy, maybe I could be a detective, I don't know, like a PI. So it's really, really fun. It feels very true to life. Like she's just got these issues, these problems in her life, like everybody does, and she's got this little extra added problem of trying to make a living. It's great. It's great.
I'm writing that down. I'm writing those two down. Love and
Vera Kelly.
Vera Kelly.
Why is she not a mystery?
I haven't gotten that far yet. That's the name of the second book. So right now she's got like a client. She's, been hired to find this boy who's disappeared from his grandmother's house. So I don't know why she's not a mystery, but I have to believe that pretty soon she's going to start connecting the dots. And I don't know, but they're really well written. They're really fun. They're not trashy, but they're not necessarily cerebral either. They're just like kind of hard-boiled, like throwbacks to those, hard-boiled PI stories.
Yeah,
cool.
Those are always good, though.
I agree. And I don't like mysteries, but I'm loving these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, on that, Rosanne, I know you've been on the show before, but remind our audience what you guys do there.
So we do family law and divorce. That's all we do. I'm one of 150 lawyers in the state of New Jersey out of 41,000 of us that has a specialty certification in family law. Not allowed to use the word expert because the rules of professional conduct for lawyers prohibit us from saying we're experts. But
am I allowed to call you an expert? If I call you an expert, is that okay?
I would say so. I would say you're an expert.
We settle 99% of all the cases we take without going to court, and we do that with what I call the iron fist in a velvet glove approach to conflict resolution. So I can take out my iron fist if I need to, and certainly we're not faint-hearted, but we much rather use our velvet glove, and we're very good at settling cases, and that's really how divorce should be done.
Yeah, I can do a little testimonial. Rosanne helped me lose about 200 pounds a few years ago, and and she did it. It was contentious. I mean, it wasn't a smooth and easy divorce by any means, but we did not have to take out the iron fist at all. We settled really quickly and easily, and relatively painlessly as well. So yeah.
I always tell people,
the velvet glove.
My dad used to ask me, he would always ask me when he saw me, did you win in court? And I would tell him that nobody wins in divorce. Everybody loses. It's not a zero. Nobody's life is the same. I don't care who you are. Yeah. And the best settlement is one where I think both parties leave the settlement table equally unhappy. Nobody should be dancing.
We're equally happy.
Exactly.
Well,
nobody should be
sometimes
dancing.
it's a good thing getting out of these things, who knows?
Yeah. And there's a cost to divorce, and it's not just money. It's time, your time away from your life, and emotional toll. So you have to decide how much of all those costs do you want to spend. It's not just money, although that is expensive. And sometimes closure is much more valuable to people, and I try to counsel people in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that it's a really, really well-reasoned thought. You like, it can be easy to get caught up in the anger and like wanting to punish someone and make them pay for like all the years of pain and suffering or whatever. You know, every marriage is different. But if you look at it from a practical standpoint, like what are your goals and how much are you willing to put into getting your goals?
Exactly.
Math.
And that's my job, is I give you choices. You decide which, I call them little baby rabbits in a field you want me to chase. Which one of those, your divorce is 20 baby rabbits. I can chase all of them if you want to spend all that money. And most people, they want to know what they're entitled to and what their obligations are. But you have to always couch that in terms of what are the costs and expenses, psychological, emotional, and financial, associated with achieving those rights, and that's always what it is. It's a compromise. It's the way to go. Letting go.
Has the process changed at all in the last couple of years? Like, you're saying time away. I imagine a lot of this stuff gets done over Zoom and stuff, or maybe not, but that's just my guess. Has that changed the process at all? Has it made it cheaper or more expensive or anything like that?
I think it's made it more affordable, to be honest with you, because once COVID hit and the judiciary shut down, it used to be throughout New Jersey that for family court cases, and that's all we do, if you wanted to file something with the court, like an application or a complaint for divorce, anything, you had to hand deliver it or go there and bring it or mail it. When COVID hit, the building shut down. Nobody was in the courthouses. They had to develop very quickly an electronic filing system that did not exist before. Now, it existed for what they call civil cases, like breach of contract type cases, but it didn't exist in the family court in New Jersey. So that was a great efficiency that was created due to COVID. We don't have to spend money delivering things to the courthouse, because sometimes we're at, things get filed at the 11th hour and the courthouse closes at 4:30. We would be running over there with paperwork because there's deadlines. Like,
you would believe that they would have figured that out at least years ago.
Oh, I know. Right. Think about that. But that's how it was. And we have to follow these rules of procedure. That's, there are deadlines for things that we have to do. The other efficiency is court via Zoom. It used to be, now I would go to, let's just say, a settlement conference. Everybody gets a notice, show up at 9. I could be there all day waiting for 20 minutes in front of the judge. All day. What am I doing? I'm talking to my client. I'm trying to find a quiet place where I can work. And if I remember to bring my laptop and there's good Wi-Fi service, I might be able to get something done. But my client, unless I'm working actively on something else, is paying me to sit there to wait. Now, for the most part, it's you show up, case A, you show up at 9, case B, you show up at 9:30, C, 10, and so on. So my clients don't pay us to sit around and do nothing. Now, the courts have the discretion to bring you in, and they use that, like, in my opinion, like a hammer, meaning they know you don't want to go. So that pressures you to settle.
So that's what I was going to ask. Is it now that the world in general has been opening up a lot more, has it been moving away from the Zoom? And so now, so now they say, like, you got to come in or ... Okay.
Yeah, and if they tell you to come in for a settlement conference, you're there all day.
Wow.
That you can go in, like, let's say you're outside in the hallway talking for 2 hours and you're not getting anywhere. You go in, you tell the judge where you're at, and you're like, this isn't settleable. It's just not working. He or she will be like, you're here all day. Go back out there and keep trying. And yes, this is my life.
Wow.
So, and I did during COVID. I tried a number of cases by Zoom, which was really actually pretty easy, because everything, we submitted all our evidence electronically, we shared screens, and it was just much more conducive because, instead of, I tried a case, we had over 120 trial exhibits. If I was doing that in person, I'd have to have 3 or 4 banker boxes with me back and forth every day that I was in trial. and I'm a small person, and I'd probably have to have help getting into the courthouse and out of the courthouse just to get this paperwork there. Now it's, the judges are looking at the stuff on their screen, and it's just much easier. Not all of them will do that, but a lot of them do.
Do you ever get somebody who is on the Zoom and they're contentious and they like don't want to turn on their camera? They're like, I'm here, but I'm like not going to participate. Does the judge mandate that everybody turns their cameras on?
Yes, they do mandate that. And I have not experienced what you're talking about, but the judge does mandate that you have your camera on.
Well,
and,
I think you would have to mitigate cheating and whatnot, right?
Well, not only that, and you're not supposed to have anybody in the room. We actually had,
Right, that's what I meant.
actually tried a case, a domestic violence case. I represented the defendant who was being accused of domestic violence, which is rare. I mean, we usually represent victims, but this fellow asked us to represent him, and we found his spouse during her testimony by Zoom was conferring with another lawyer. She had a lawyer who was questioning her. And then I was cross-examining her by Zoom. And she had her phone. So right now I have my phone right in front of me, but you can't see it, right? It's right here. She had her phone just like that. And on the phone, listening, was another lawyer, a friend of hers, coaching her. And we caught her doing that because we got her cell phone records and we matched it to the transcript of the proceedings, the timestamps.
That's hardcore.
So she destroyed her credibility, and we were able to win that case because the judge after that questioned her about whether she was really doing that, and she lied. Not only did she violate the rules by having a third party listening in, she then lied about it under questioning by the court, and then we filed an application to dismiss her pleadings, and we won because the court, there's a theory called false as to one, false as to all. So if you tell one falsehood and the court finds that you told one falsehood, they can deem everything else you've said a falsehood. So
well, it's perjury, right?
So that was yes, it's perjury. Yeah. And it was interesting. Yeah, it's criminal. I don't think she was charged, to be honest, but and frankly, I didn't think he committed an act of domestic violence. If I had thought he was guilty, I would have not. I have a hard time being in cases like that.
Is this a typical thing where they, like you were saying that you suspected that they were doing this, so you subpoenaed the records? Is that a typical thing where you would think to do that, or was this a unique case? Like I remember during the pandemic, my wife was taking her principal exam, and they had everyone walk around the whole room with their phone to show like, okay, here's every nook and cranny, here's every room. And then they had to turn off their phone on the webcam just so that it was absolutely certain that there were no, like avenues for this kind of thing. Does that happen typically?
No, the court is not typically asking people to show the room. But in some cases where we did see a glimpse of a person, the court would do that. It's in a couple of my cases. But the case that I was just telling you about, Gary's talking to me. The case I was just telling you about was very uncommon. It was 6 days of trial. These usually domestic violence cases, 1 day of trial and it's resolved one way or the other. But this was a very unique case, and she kept pushing the envelope, and she was really grinding her axe, and my guy was adamant that he did nothing wrong, and he pushed, he wanted her to put her money where her mouth was, and she couldn't. But that would have been uncommon, and frankly, he's the one who figured it out.
Mm.
Interesting.
So you mentioned
my job is so interesting. I could tell you stories. You wouldn't believe it's true, but these are actually, it's truth is what they say, truth is stranger than fiction. It's true.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because before you mentioned, divorce and family law, or maybe even just divorce, everyone leaves equally unhappy.
Right.
Do you leave equally unhappy? Do you enjoy, because it's kind of weird, like, like when you say like it's an unhappy profession, but you got to be happy doing it, right?
Well, what I find happy about it is I think of what I'm doing as serving, and I've always wanted to be I'm a Christian, and I believe in serving my community. And I do believe that for the most part, and there are exceptions, that I am serving the greater good by helping people that do not want to be in these unhappy marriages get out of these unhappy marriages. And I want to feel, and the way I feel good at the end of it is by what I feel is doing a good job of representing them vigorously, but not being a jerk. You know, not grinding the litigation process for my own benefit. You know, trying to figure out ways where we can compromise, and counseling my clients to you know, make some compromises here, and then we can be done. You know, always sort of helping them see that closure and finishing is really valuable. I also love that my day is different every day. Everybody's life is different. If, you know, I was divorcing you, Vinny, you have different things going on than Kate has going on. And so from that standpoint, it's very intellectually stimulating. I love being an entrepreneur. I have a small firm, 5 lawyers, including myself. We have 5 paralegals and a couple of admins. I love leading them. I love teaching the younger lawyers. I love helping them grow as lawyers. I love the business of law. So, you know, I have a lot of freedom, and I'm very blessed. So there's not a lot to not like about it.
So you said there are 150 family law lawyers in New Jersey
that have a specialty certification from the New Jersey Supreme Court. So that's one way. So I tell people, if you are getting divorced and you have anything at stake in your marriage, make sure you get an expert. Okay, well, how do you know you have an expert? You look for the specialty certification, and there's only 150 of us in New Jersey.
So I was going to ask, since you were talking about your team, how many are on your team?
We have 5 lawyers, two of them are certified.
Cool.
It's a pain to get certified. It's like 40 page application. Yeah, you have to catalog for the court all kinds of cases that you've appeared before. You have to identify the docket number, the case name, the adversary, the judge who you appeared before, the resolution of the case. Then you have to get like 10 lawyers to vouch for you. You have to get like 10 judges to vouch for you. Then you have to take a test, and you keep your recertification. I have to take twice as many continuing ed classes as a regular attorney does. So it's a big thing to be certified. It takes a lot of effort.
I was going to say, just getting 10 competitors to vouch for you might be hard.
Well, that's why, you know, you don't want to be a jerk. You know, it's not about us.
Right.
You know, you get a reputation quickly if you're kind of jerky to your adversaries.
Sure.
It's one thing to be a good lawyer, tough, and you know, a vigorous advocate, but you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
There's a line.
Television has taught me otherwise, FYI.
Right. It's not like
shows.
Yeah, you burn bridges, because you know what? I'm going to work with that lawyer again. I may not work with you ever again.
Exactly.
And I want to settle cases with that lawyer. I don't want them to remember me like, oh, there she is again. Here we go. You know, we've already made judgment calls.
Kate makes an interesting point. So courtroom dramas are probably very different from, you know, the reality. Have you ever watched one that you thought this got it spot on? And have you ever watched one that you were like, no, this is as far from reality as it gets?
You know, I've seen it all. I've seen people. I did the longest trial I ever did was 14 days. These people didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but they fought over the 2 nickels. Ridiculous, like the height of ridiculousness. And frankly, I think it, you know, was the adverse party who was representing themselves.
Well, you know, I think, okay, when you say that, I think it was Chris Rock who, and I could be wrong, but I want to say it was Chris Rock who once said, when you've got like $100 million and your spouse takes 50, you've still got $50 million. Right. You've got 2 nickels and somebody takes one of them. That's a big deal, you know?
Yeah, and it was really just about, you know, vindictiveness, because my client wanted to settle, and she was had a disability, and she was entitled to alimony. And so, but, you know, and then I've done the ridiculous cases where we had a trial over who got custody of the dogs, and dogs in New Jersey are considered personal property. They're not considered children, like custody. You can't have custody of your dogs. It's who owns the dogs.
Mm.
And that's such a fascinating idea, because I don't know anybody who has dogs that would think of them as anything but children. But I don't have kids, and so maybe that's just me. They're my babies, you know?
And it runs the gamut. I mean, people fighting over the china, the art collection, the weapons collection, fighting over the vacation home. Family-owned businesses often breed a lot of adverse, reactions in people because they're family-owned and you don't want to share.
It could just be self-preservational. I don't need this person who's really mad at me to have our stash of weapons,
Yeah, well,
Seriously.
this is true. This is
All right, on that note, I think we're going to take a break and we're going to come back in a minute. And welcome back. And now it is time for our second icebreaker of the day, which today is brought to us by Veris GP. The question is, if you were stranded on a deserted island, what celebrity would you want to be stranded with you?
Does Jesus Christ count?
I'd say he counts. By definition of celebrity, everybody knows who he is. So yeah, sure.
Everybody knows who he is. Yeah, you're totally right. And also, it's a really practical answer.
Yeah. I don't want to get too flippant with this, just considering who he is. But I mean, you have a lot of water around, he could make it into wine. Maybe if you have a little bit of bread, he could make it into fishes. Or is that how that worked? No, it wasn't that he was changing bread into fishes. It was that he was infinitely generating them, right? I don't know how that worked per se, but
yeah,
it's a very practical response.
I wouldn't be wanting him there to do any sort of miracles or things like that, as much as I would want to know sort of like, what's the point, like what's the meaning of life, kind of like really big questions, like, or is the earth just really the imagination of some higher being decided to create the earth and put it on the head of a pin, and we call it earth, and like they're just like sort of watching it and unfold, and it one day is just going to disintegrate because we're just going to kill ourselves, and global warming? Or is there really a God? Like like I would just be wanting to know those kinds of
great questions.
Existential, alleviate my existential angst.
Yeah. I feel like
don't we know all of his answers to those questions though? I mean, assuming you've read the book, right?
I have read the book.
Right. So
I don't know. There are pieces of the book that contradict each other, though.
Yes, they do. And especially when you talk about LGBTQ and all of that, and what is really expected of us as human beings. I don't want to get too deep into the religion, but God promises, right? Salvation, everlasting life, and you don't have to do anything to achieve that except believe. So then what's the point of being a good person?
Correct.
So why morality? Just for the sake of morality?
I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of things in the book that talk about, morality for, well, I mean, so I'm not a theology, major or anything here, but I mean, there are things where, you have, like there are commandments, and and even beyond the commandments, there are certain sins and everything, so I mean, they do get into why you should be a good person, even beyond just the golden rule of do unto others as you would want done to yourself.
But those are just expectations. Roseanne is correct that more than once it is stated that you don't have to do anything to get into heaven except believe.
That's interesting.
What I think the answer is, and which I would love to talk to Jesus personally about, is that the reason there's 10 commandments and we're expected to conduct ourselves in certain ways is so that we reflect the values of Christ in the world, to draw people, like it's attraction, not promotion. Like I'm going to demonstrate Christ-like qualities, let's say, by who I am and what I do and how I treat people, and thereby draw people into belief. That's, I think, what the point is.
Sort of like be the change you want to see in the world.
I guess Yeah. So I hadn't thought about this when you first mentioned it, because I said we kind of know all of his answers to that. But since you said there are contradictions, it was passed down for a long time like a game of telephone. There probably are a lot of things that, whatever the original, thing was, is probably not what we read today. So yeah, it would
Well,
be good to get straight from, the source.
it
Mhm.
would be. So when you think about the Bible as a collection of books and stories that was compiled by a guy or a committee of men in the original Greek, I think,
Mhm.
um, it is fascinating to consider what they left out and why they included the things that they included, many of which often contradict each other. Like if you think about the Song of Solomon, which is beautiful poetry, and the book of Leviticus, which is
Yeah.
just, forgive me, kind of hateful.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, I studied comparative religion when I was in college, and so I could sit and talk about this for hours.
So could
But
I.
yeah, I think it's fascinating.
But just to your point, I would like to know what is the truth between those inconsistencies, and what about this notion? Because not only is there inconsistencies, it's some uh, academics say you have to take these words in context of when they were written, and then other academics say no, they're perennial truths. It doesn't matter that they were written 2,000 years ago. Well,
Right.
which is, you know,
Right.
because some of this stuff is crazy, doesn't, like Leviticus. Well, wait
Yeah.
a minute, where there's only one man, one woman for marriage, but I gotta cut off the head of the sheep, whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's
that
ridiculous.
doesn't
Or
apply anymore, but this does.
yeah, or the rule of thumb, which I believe comes from the Bible, and the rule of thumb is that you're allowed to beat your wife, but it can't be with a branch wider than how wide your thumb is. That's where rule of thumb comes from. And I think it's read out of the Bible, which is, I'm sorry, but I don't know anybody who thinks that that's reasonable. I hope I don't know
That's a
anybody.
pretty big branch.
It's a pretty big twig, pretty big
Yeah.
branch, yeah. Rule of thumb.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
I didn't
Anyway.
never heard that before. I'm gonna look that up.
I hope I'm wrong, but I think I read that somewhere that it's from the Bible. Anyway,
Anyway.
that, that was our second icebreaker, brought to you by Varus GP. Thank you so much. Shout out to Varus.
Actually,
And
going off the shout out to Varus, I texted Kate this a couple weeks ago, but Varus was on our show, I don't know, about a month ago, maybe a little bit
something
more.
like
And Michelle Benton recommended the Goldbelly Nightingale ice cream bars, which she said put the original ice cream bar to shame. So I finally took a look out for them, found some in Walmart, and she's right, it's divinity. So
that. Full circle.
that's my shout out. That's what I'm truly binging this week.
An ice cream bar called Goldbelly.
Yeah, they're
I'm gonna
fantastic.
check it out. I'm a daily ice cream eater.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I don't know how else to describe it. So when she came in, she called the original ice cream bar gross. And I was like, hold on, I don't want you to besmirch the good name of the original ice cream bar. I'm sure this is better. But having had the thing that she was recommending, I mean, I'm not going to call the original one gross, but I can see by comparison where you would get that. It
What's
really
the
is that
original
much
one
better.
mean? What do you mean by the original one?
Like what you would, if you just close your eyes and I say ice cream bar, the thing that
Okay.
pops in your head, that's the
Okay.
original. This,
Got it.
I mean, and actually, they're not even the only ones that are doing this. Because when I went to Walmart and I was looking around in the frozen, desserts area there are a bunch of people trying to make high-end dessert versions of things that we, appreciate, in general. So, I mean, you could go with that one. You could probably try whatever looks good when you're there, but just know that there are some awesome options out there.
Gotta check it out.
Absolutely.
I'm
Sorry.
definitely
So thank you to
that.
Varus GP for
Let
that
me write that
and
down
for
too.
sponsoring the show.
All
So,
kinds of tidbits today.
I know, right?
Roseanne, would you have any advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oh boy, I wish I could talk to that girl for hours. I think the biggest thing I would tell my younger self is don't worry so much. Everything kind of works out the way it's supposed to. Somebody that's a big worrier, It's taken me, you know, I'm going to be 60 years old, so there's been a lot of years in there that I worried unnecessarily, and it trains you. So worry about money, worrying about, you know, because I've been an entrepreneur for 20 some years, and it's, you know, there's hairy years in there that were pretty hairy. 2008 comes to mind, and you know, you just wonder, how am I going to make ends meet? And you know, I think as my faith has increased, my worry has gone down, and so I think I would just tell my younger self, don't worry so much.
Okay.
Let it go. Let it go of what you can't control. Try your hardest, and the outcome is out of your hands.
That's good
Okay.
advice.
So if somebody needs a family lawyer, I was going to say expert. We're not allowed to say, am I allowed to say expert? I think I asked that before.
You can.
Okay. So if somebody needs a family lawyer, how can they get a hold of you guys?
They can call us at 908-284-6005. They can go to our website, dndfamilylaw.com. There's lots of free information there. You don't have to call us or want to talk to us if you just want to get free info about the process of divorce. I wrote a book about divorce you can download for free.
What's it called?
It's called Divorce, the Answers You Need Before, During, and After.
You took that pause there after divorce. I was going to be like, is that the whole title? Divorce? Okay. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Is that available on the website, or do I go to Kindle? How does it work?
You can buy it on Amazon, but you don't have to. You can get it for free on my website.
Okay.
But you have to give me your email to get it.
Sure. All right. You got it.
That's awesome. All right, I think that's the show. That was amazing. Thank you to our listeners, especially the subscribers. We really appreciate the support. Thank you to New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, the official sponsor of the show. They do home, auto, and workers' comp, so check them out if you need some updated coverage. And finally, thank you to Rosanne DeTorres of DeTorres and DeGeorge Family Law for joining us today and becoming a member of the Hat Trick Club.
Thank you guys so much. It's always great to talk to you.
You too.
Fantastic. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.